What do you get when during COVID-19 you cross a group of students studying business who need internships and small businesses who are struggling to survive with one really smart, hardworking entrepreneur who knows how to leverage learning with sustainability? Welcome to Small and Gutsy, our podcast featuring nonprofits and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Dr. Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. We hope you'll love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Please pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at lwitkoff@gmail.com. That's 2 T's and 2 F's. Introducing REM and Company, a social impact initiative focusing on keeping doors open and literally dreams alive. REM and Company began by offering free consulting services to small businesses impacted by COVID-19. Through their own industry research and client engagements, they grew into an information hub and digital community platform for small businesses comprised of over 600 advisors, also known as REM and Company problem solvers. Founder and creative director Cameron O'Curie has the unique attributes of being both a problem solver and a community activist. I think I might actually call her a mover and a shaker, or maybe a meanderer, intentionally taking in every chosen moment and from that moment building her path and inviting others interested in discovering their own paths. Her heart, soul, enthusiasm, and business sense are foundational pillars that have guided her to bring together leading experts with small businesses needing support and engaging university students through an immersive learning experience. REM and Company has so many interesting intersections of learning. I think I really have to let my guest really do the talking. I am so very excited to introduce REM and Company's founder and creative director, Cameron O'Curie. So let's get started. Welcome, Cameron. Please share your passion about REM and Company. And of course, you have to tell us where the name came from.
Thank you so much, Laura, and the rest of the team for having me here today. I think the passion for REM and Company, it started off with definitely helping small businesses, but I think even as the pandemic really changed, it became really about educating and empowering Gen Z on the role that they have socially and financially, really supporting local economies and their communities. Definitely, I think when we first started REM, we were really seeing two communities that really needed help. So whether that was small businesses, which had to oftentimes lay off a lot of their workers and were kind of struggling to digitally transform, stay afloat during the height of the pandemic, but also a lot of not only students, but young professionals who had either been laid off from their jobs, internships canceled, or even some of more of our executives that just had more time on their hands now that they weren't spending so much time commuting in and out of the office. Our passion, as I said before, has really been about community and the role each and every one of us has to play within that. I think something that oftentimes a lot of students struggle with is actually what's out there. You're kind of told there are a few different jobs that are there, and when you start really actually digging on LinkedIn, you kind of figure out that every company is calling a job a different title. There are so many things that are out there, but oftentimes it takes one person that really needs to expose you to what's out there, whether it's students or professionals that come to us and from the womb they knew they wanted to work at a top 3 consulting company, or we have the people that are saying, you know what, consulting might be just a stepping stone to a career in law, medicine, etc. When we kind of label people problem solvers over anything else, it really opens the door to the types of people that can actually come and join our initiative.
I love that so much, because you folks can get an education in lots of different ways. And the area that you're really talking about is exploring and experimenting. Before we go into the programmatic aspect and the membership and the growth, because I want to hear all about that. Okay, you have to tell my listeners about the name, because it's just so interesting.
You were kind of just thinking that COVID had just been this really chaotic time, and we wanted something that really was going to be the calm to the chaos. In a time of so much stress, how could you feel supported and almost even just a sense of stillness? And that really came from REM and the stage of sleep that it is. It's the stage where you're most innovative and creative. We needed new and exciting approaches. It wasn't just traditional consulting that was really going to go and solve a lot of these problems. We needed people that were going to be really flexible and adaptable as well. Early on, we were really in the crisis management. Things were changing so quickly. So for us, dealing with all of a sudden we're at 40% capacity versus 30% capacity. We're doing yes to outdoor dining, and then all of a sudden the next week, no. Strategies need to change so quickly. So oftentimes these other firms that are building out strategies that are months or years out really weren't going to work for us. So it was very much on how can we really be present in the moment and constantly doing research about different local and government policies and regulations that were constantly changing and how that was affecting even the business world around us.
That is so brilliant, because you're right. And when I initially started sort of in the consulting world myself, you would look at strategic plans that would be 5 years out, right? And then it was 3 years, and then it was 18 months, just in sort of that more traditional consulting frame. And now you're really talking about continuous review of what the standards are, what the practices are, what the policies are, what from local region to local region it might be that impacts a company that might have more than one location, even if it's very small. So it's the reimagining of what could be is really the fulfilling of the dream.
With COVID, we've seen across so many different industries that there has just been this acceleration, whether it's in terms of e-commerce, and that's really why we even came to be, was this fact that a lot of these businesses were really struggling with digital transformation, things that they had said, oh, in 2 years we'll fix our website because it's the local mom and pop shop that everyone has had their phone number in there forever and already have memorized their order. It suddenly isn't working. A lot of those long-term goals were changed. There was just a sense of unexpectedness across the entire nation and across the entire world as well. So for us, constantly being able to really retrain people on how we think in the now is something that was very, very, very important.
Yeah, and very new for so many people too. They hadn't really considered that. I think people were reacting to the pandemic with so much anxiety. They were just trying to survive at certain points and didn't know which direction. So you really did fill that gap in multiple ways. So share a little bit about the growth and the programs that you offer and the membership opportunities.
Definitely. So REM and Company, when it started off, we really were just doing our bread and butter, the free consulting services for small businesses. So for each small business, we have a team of anywhere from 4 to 6 people really working for 6 to 8 weeks with a small business one-on-one. It's a really great experience, one for a lot of these different businesses to have a team of the best and the brightest. I think a lot of things that we talk about at REM is also this idea of democratizing talent. So when we have students that are at the top of their university, what they want to do is they want to go to the Googles, the Goldmans, the things that are flashy. They're not saying, yes, I'm going to work, at a mom and pop shop down the road. It's very much, we want something bigger. And oftentimes then within that, a lot of these small businesses don't have access to amazing talent or even at that same level. And even if they do, it's not at the scale where you have 5 people, maybe you have 1 or 2 or a handful depending on where you are. And that's really how we started. But as the pandemic changed, so really did we. We launched Dreamcatcher, which is like our COVID resource center, but also just the place where we go for a lot of small business strategy articles. We realized that even though we were growing so quickly, we really weren't growing quick enough when you think about the amount of small businesses that are in the United States. And for us to even have, 4 or 6 people on each of those teams, we needed to be so much bigger to be able to serve so much more. So for us, a huge thing was, how do we actually publish research that can help so many other businesses that may not have the opportunity to work with us one-on-one?
You really are speaking my language in a very interesting way, because Small and Gutsy, which I think will avail ourselves of your services, or at least of the articles, started because the larger nonprofits that are, we picked a number of over 10 million, can afford to have a whole marketing team, and you can't use public dollars to fund marketing or PR. And I expanded it to include the small for-profits that have a social impact, that are doing social good. The category you fall into, you're really doing social good in a huge way. And so it's interesting because it's a niche area that will be forgotten if we can't put some resources into it and support them and help them grow. And it's really what you're doing for these small businesses, and you're leveraging these other relationships. And it's got to be, I would imagine, a huge learning opportunity for both the students and the large companies who are investing their time to really help bring the economy back up post this, we're really still in the midst to a certain extent of this pandemic.
Definitely. And I think even within that, we've kind of just seen so many of our different verticals have come up just because we've seen different issues within the small business community or different needs. So I think really deep within COVID, we kept hearing so many of these really just hard stories about businesses closing, et cetera. And we realized that not only did we have all these businesses that were really struggling, but we had so many businesses, especially within the younger generations, that were starting or thriving or taking off during the pandemic, which was amazing because we then got to launch Pillow Talk, which is our series of intimate conversations with small business owners and entrepreneurs. And that's something that is, to be honest, one of my favorite parts of REM, because we get to hear the stories of really exciting companies that were either just launched during COVID or, a few years before, and they're doing amazing things in terms of innovation, sustainability, the work that they're doing for the community, et cetera. So that was something that was so exciting for us.
I love that. I love the name Pillow Talk. It's, again, on your theme. I think it's so creative and clever. And are most of those organizations you've helped, or you've just learned about them and wanted to interview them because they're, have been surviving and trying to do innovative startup during this really crazy time? Or both?
Definitely the latter. I think a lot of these businesses don't really need our help. A lot of times with the businesses that we do work with, it's about just getting them up to the standards of what is digital marketing, how does it actually work, how does it fit in with your business, et cetera. The brands that we're kind of seeing for Pillow Talk, especially because they're run by people that are Gen Z, millennials, it's very much they know exactly what's going on. You can see on the Instagram that they understand brand. They've maybe even worked with agencies. They really know how to tap into the consumer in terms of aesthetic, mission, and also they're just really growth focused as well. So it's been something really exciting just to kind of see that the small business landscape has so many different parts to it. But something that's really exciting is after we started interviewing a lot of different businesses, there was a really clear theme for us, and a lot of businesses were coming to us and saying, you guys do such a great job of actually curating these brands, whether they're all really in the same aesthetic family or with the same values, et cetera, which is something that we're really excited for because we're about to launch our marketplace, which is going to be more of a community-centered approach, not only to supporting and scaling businesses like we've done in the past, but also really shopping them.
And then you're really able to monetize the work that you're doing, and you can still continue to provide pro bono consulting if you can monetize enough to support the offerings that you have for those small businesses who need them. And I think that I also saw a section on nonprofits that you also support.
Yeah, so we've seen even with the nonprofits, just like us, they're just as dedicated as we are to really supporting those communities, but also with COVID and so many people being laid off or losing their jobs, people don't have as much money to really donate back. And oftentimes nonprofits, we are dealing with, one board member that's doing everything. And that's kind of when we're lucky. Oftentimes it's kind of just a board that's spread out and people are taking on things when they can. So it's been really exciting to us to work with those nonprofits and hear just the amazing stories and the work that they're doing to change their community.
So what keeps you, you definitely are an explorer, or as you call yourself, a meanderer. So share with my listeners sort of where does that take you? The concept of marketplace. I feel like it comes from the folks who utilize your services, or from your observation, or from your ability just to be willing to walk through doors that are before you. I don't know, but I want you to speak to that because it's very cool.
I think it starts with, even in my TED Talk, I kind of briefly discussed this idea that you always have an hour in your day, and time is this concept that you're really in charge of. So even with COVID, it was really about how people were choosing to spend their time, where it's do we need to watch 5 hours of Netflix, or can we watch 4 and spend that last hour really helping a business in our community that really needs help? Understanding this idea of there was always time that I could actually be donating if I was reallocating in different places. On the other hand, everything that we built has really been through the needs of our community or the needs of the businesses. It was never, let's build a marketplace because we love fashion, or let's start a consulting company because I want to be a consultant. It was very much, we're seeing an issue within our community and we're building something around it. And I think when we see a lot of the other companies that are big and really successful, oftentimes they're built around need. It's not the ones that are just saying, oh, we need to do something or we want to do something, let's go do it. It's very much, let's hear from our users, etc. And I think my background, especially early on in my career, was all about user experience and product design, having one-on-one interviews with different consumers, really understanding what makes them tick and the issues that they're actually seeing, and then being able to build solutions for that. So when we began to build REM and Company, we were seeing, we have all these students and professionals that are struggling with even just communicating in a pandemic and making new friends, networking, etc., what that actually looks like. And we have all of these small business owners who are really struggling to stay afloat. How do we create solutions that work for both of them?
Really the opposite of professionally being arrested and sort of stopping and kind of going into a panic place. I think a lot of people naturally did, and for sometimes absolutely the right reason. How am I going to pay my bills, and so on and so forth. But I love the concept of how do you really create movement by just paying attention, and your method is how do I give back? That piece combined with we have to pay attention, and this is true in the nonprofit sector too, you have to pay attention to what consumers are asking for, whether it's a client in a social service organization or a consumer who's out there, purchasing or whatever. So the needs assessment piece is so essential, and the willingness to be open to utilizing time in a new way and being able to give back is, I think, so much a part of probably the orientation to REM and Company and to the learning itself. It sounds like because there's so much movement constantly, what are some of the lessons learned in this growth or in this? Because as you started, did other people say, that's a great idea, we're going to get on board with you? Or was there, how are you going to do this? And what are you thinking of?
In the beginning, it was anyone who, to be honest, I'd ever breathed on. Whether it was one of my first bosses at Valentino, who's now on one of our boards. I'm I need help on how to actually really build a brand and also really better understand running a large company or a large organization and what that's going to look like. So there's so many different people that have kind of played so many different roles within that. Even back when I was at WashU, I had an amazing organizational behavior professor, and we really worked a lot about how should this actually be structured? What does it look like to run an organization of this size? Just because oftentimes no one is trusting someone who, is right out of school to manage over 600 people. A lot of it really is really understanding and learning for some of the amazing companies that are out there and leaders on what works and what doesn't work within that. And I think early on it was very much, let's build this brand and what does it actually mean to do that. Early on, when I spent a lot of time building the brand, all the different branding things like Pillow Talk and Dreamcatcher that keep people excited when they see our website or the color scheme, etc. It was all about just setting the stage for what is this going to be and making sure people really knew it was something that was serious early on. So oftentimes, even when people were kind of coming to us, they're like, well, the website just looked so good. It was something that if I worked here and needed a reference, I would feel comfortable with my boss going there and be wait, this is so cool, this is so professional, etc. And then kind of working to figure out more of the organizational structure and how we're actually going to grow. It was kind of crazy going from, a few months before really being the one being interviewed from all of these companies for full-time positions. Then all of a sudden it's I'm on the other end really interviewing all those different people. And it made a very clear thing on us kind of understanding what's going to go into our culture, who are the types of people that we actually want in our organization, especially when it's something where everyone's volunteer. You have one bad experience and people are wait, I don't want to do this. You want to make sure everyone comes out of this, and I've worked with the most hardworking people. I've made such great friends. I'm so excited about the client that I'm working with. So a lot of it has really been about experience and managing that on the client side and also on the volunteer side. Even leading into what you had said just about some of the learnings, I think my biggest thing has been if you're not helping, you're hurting, and you really have to be here for the right reasons. Small businesses are trusting you with the livelihood of their business. So for us, it's so important that the people that come to us come with such a passion and also a drive. It's definitely been a lot about building that culture. And in a way, I think we've seen with so many different issues, whether it's Black Lives Matter and how companies have responded to that, there's a lot of fixing of the cultures. And it's really an interesting time when you're building something to kind of say you can learn from all the people that have made mistakes and start in a place where what are the things that we really care about? What are our core values? I think that's something that definitely kept people coming back. No matter who's in our organization, we really go through and make sure that every single person is aligned on one community. The fact that if you're an intern that's never done anything with consulting, you're just here to research, or you're an executive at a Fortune 500 company, not only are you needed here, but you're wanted here. And that voice is something that you really need to use, because there are so many different things in a crisis situation where not all of us will see it. If you see something, say something. It's really important that everyone knows that they have a role to play within our organization.
You have said like a zillion key important things that you imagine most really good consultants know and don't operationalize. So I need to give you huge kudos. As a social worker, you could be a social worker, no. So it's really the approach of building a relationship, really putting yourself in the organization who needs help, their shoes. The piece about everybody's a volunteer, but everybody has a role and everybody's valued for their input, and that respect encourages hard work and contribution. Everything you've said is just music, because it often goes kind of absent in sometimes more traditional consulting roles of going in and doing a piece of work or doing a strategy plan. And you've really encouraged a culture both inside your organization with the volunteers, but also with the organizations to whom you consult and connect, because they have to be vulnerable. They have to be in a state of vulnerability, and that trust and that relationship build is key to help them move forward. You really have the ingredients to this magical capacity to further develop and sustain these organizations you're helping. And I think also probably the folks who are learning in those environments, because they can be more hands-on, whereas in a larger organization, they may not have that same opportunity.
For me, something that I know from me being productive is the actual environment when I'm in. And I always tell our interns like the story of one of my first job was at Wall Street Journal, and I sat in like the news desk, like literally the bullpen of like 300 screens, etc. And I'm the kid that has like such bad ADHD, always took my tests in like a private room, and like still someone was writing in the other room and I was distracted. Being able to actually tell people, wait, you can communicate how you want to work, or what's the best way for you to actually do this, and kind of building that into our culture has created a place where so much better work is being done, because you're around people that you want to work with. You're doing things in a way that you really feel comfortable, and also giving people different opportunities. If you can't donate tons of time, it may just be being an advisor or checking in here or there. There's so many different ways that people can still stay involved in a way where they actually can hold themselves accountable to that commitment, and it's not just, one shoe fits all, but being able to accurately give people different opportunities to actually get involved in a way that's going to work best for their schedule and what they want to get out of this.
I love this because it's not a cookie cutter. You are really valuing the individual, and you're not criticizing them, using your own story and your own example, which is quite beautiful. Everyone has value, and you have to be able to speak up and say, this is the environment, or this is what I need to be able to produce best, if it can be accommodated. And I think COVID has shown us that there are just so many ways that we can accommodate and be able to get the best out of individuals and have them be reflective of how they learn best. And the other thing I just want to comment on is the folks who are then interns really do get the value of that culture and process that you've created with REM and Company, and either branch off and be able to do something else, or continue on a path that they then feel confident based on what you've been able to provide for them. And I think that that kind of culture being spread is a huge social impact that you're having outside of all the others that you're doing.
I get most excited when I talk about our student initiatives. We're right now at over 20 college campuses, and hopefully come the fall we'll be at even more. And I think a huge thing when we're actually interacting with them is really telling people like what's possible. As I said before, a lot of people are very confused about what the future holds, etc., how to get involved, but also kind of just confused about like who they are. Oftentimes we're dealing with the freshmen in college that are like, wait, I know nothing, or the seniors where it's like they think they know everything, and then they have a little bit of a freak out when it's like a recruitment and graduation, and they're like, wait, I actually know nothing as well. And a lot of it is not only about like the professional development, but the personal development as well. So something that's super important for us is we have all these ideas of different community activation. So whether it's a series that we call Continued Learning, where it's all about different podcasts, movies, etc., that we can watch in our own time throughout the week and come together And oftentimes they're really motivational pieces that are really kind of challenging us to apply what's going on, whatever we're watching, reading, listening to, etc., to what we're doing at REM. Oftentimes it's not just like what you want to get done, it's what actually needs to get done. So for me, I think even using that example early on, I was very much like HR, technical support, everything behind the scenes, when my strong suit is especially working within consulting, building those decks, interacting with a lot of those businesses. But for us to grow as an organization, I can't be on the front line speaking to every small business. I need to be building systems behind the scenes to make sure we can actually function.
So share a little bit about, I know you mentioned a few programs, and then you mentioned you're on 20 campuses. That's a lot to manage, and it's growing. So share about that process and any of the other programs you want to highlight that you haven't.
When we first started out, we had so many students that were with us at like first COVID summer where they were just like, wait, we need something to do, etc. And then when it came to that time when all of them were going back to school, they're like, wait, we're still in the midst of this pandemic, and we love the work that we were doing and the friends that we've met and the mentors that we've had. How can we figure out a way to continue? And obviously before, during the summer, it's like there's 1,000 products going on. We're running around like a chicken without our head, just helping as many businesses as possible. But then you have school, where it's extracurriculars, getting good grades, managing a social life, etc. We had to really rethink what this program would look like. So REM on Campus was an opportunity where students would really only be working with one client over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. And it's something where they're normally led by a professional who has experience. But oftentimes it's something where it's a social media or digital marketing. We have Gen Z's people that can help your TikTok go viral, are doing all this stuff. They know Instagram back and forth. It's often not helpful just to have, oh, here's this person from X bank leading it to say they're leading it, when you actually need someone who really just knows the technology and what's going on. So depending on the project and the need, it's either professional led or by one of our younger team leads. But it's something that's been really exciting just because a lot of students have come to us and they're saying, wait, I want to start this on my campus. And I think something that was really exciting was early on, we were kind of just helping businesses across the US and Canada that were just coming to us. And then it created an opportunity for people to really help businesses in their area. And oftentimes students are very sheltered. You get dropped in a city or town for 4 years and you don't actually know what's going on. Oftentimes you're not voting in the elections. You don't really know political or social issues that are happening in the place where you're temporarily living. So for us to kind of go in whenever we're entering a new community through a school, it's super important for us to actually map out that city. So better understanding what are the socioeconomic divides, what are issues within local and federal funding that have actually really impeded the growth of some of these small businesses. How are these different cities being properly like mapped out in terms of racial issues or other systemic issues that have really caused huge things within the city. So it's very important for us when we say our impact is intentional, we need to do the work to make sure that we're actually helping the businesses that really need help. And oftentimes that starts with actually educating the students about where they're living. And even though it seems so silly, a lot of these students, it's really eye-opening about the impact that they're doing. Because they come to us, they're like, oh, well, wait, let's help my favorite pizza shop down the road. And we're saying, well, it's your friend's favorite pizza shop and your pizza. That's where everyone's going. Why don't we go to 2 miles down where it's a completely different situation and they don't have students that are constantly shopping. It's a little bit of a rougher area. And because of Zoom, it's very easy for us to then like communicate. Oftentimes I think with volunteer stuff, when you're going into areas that you not be as affluent, people are really worried just about, is it safe, etc. But because you're built in COVID and everything's remote, it enables us to go into all kinds of different neighborhoods despite the socioeconomic status and really have an impact within that.
Really, they're learning beyond the actual consultation. They're learning so much more. And my hope is they take that learning and think about that in whatever avenue they progress toward, because it really is important to know the environment that you're in, both from the people sense, but also from, as you pointed out, the economic sense, the historical sense, the societal sense, all of those pieces, the political sense, so that they understand what this business is managing and dealing with, and that they can be a partner in that. Yeah. Do organizations apply to be one of your projects? Do students sign up if it's at their university? How does it work to build this hub that you have clearly built and are continuing to grow?
So a lot of the volunteer outreach really comes through LinkedIn. LinkedIn had an amazing initiative during COVID where they were really partnering with organizations like us to help really spread the word that we needed volunteers. So super thankful for our work and partnership with them. For the small businesses, they can either directly apply on our website, be nominated by a community member. And then lastly, as I said before, this strategy that we have in making sure our impact is intentional, we do a lot of outreach for these businesses.
What else do you want to share about REM and Company that you haven't already?
I think the biggest question that we normally get is, are you guys going to be around? And I think it's the most frustrating question for me to answer, just because a lot of the issues that we really saw and that we sought out to solve during COVID weren't issues that COVID created. They were issues that were really exacerbated by COVID. Yes, we're dealing with a lot of minority-owned businesses that have been disproportionately affected due to COVID, but there's a lot of governmental, societal, other issues that have been around for years that put them actually in that position. So for us, I think the narrative before was COVID help, all caps. But now it's really shifted to it takes a village, and raising a child is a lot like scaling a business. You need so many different people involved. And hopefully, as you said before, people are open to having help and having people that they can really count on, even if it's for 6 to 8 weeks, is something that's super important to us. And I think another thing that kind of goes into that has been us making sure we're constantly really putting things in perspective. Oftentimes when I get that same question, it's like, well, things, in my neighborhood or in the US has made, such a turn. We're in hopefully the outskirts of the pandemic, but look around us. It's not just a Western perspective. We're seeing so many countries that have not had the same access to vaccines. For us, when we say we want to take a business from A to Z, the A in the US looks so different than the A in so many of these other countries that it's crucial for us to constantly be thinking about how we go and help more small businesses and not just the ones that are in our neighborhood.
I love that. So you have a growth mindset anyway. So for someone to ask that question, they don't know you very well, I would say. That's my guess. Yeah, I think you're going to be around for a very long time. I hope. I can't imagine. This episode is sponsored by the Intrinsic Group, my boutique management consulting firm specializing in guiding organizations to leverage talent, optimize processes, and to ensure the organization's narrative is aligned with their culture. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, please reach out to us. To see all the small but mighty organizations we featured, check out our incredible infographics in the stories section of the Intrinsic Group website. So at this point in our podcast, we always have this round of quick and gutsies. What is at the top of your wish list for REM and Company? But the answer can't be money or funding, even though you have to monetize, and hopefully Marketplace will do that for you. But what's at the top of the wish list for REM and Company at this point?
I think for us, creating more leadership experiences. I think it's something where we have so many people that come to us so young, and making sure that not only do we cultivate their experience then, but it's really something where it can be a lifelong situation, just because oftentimes even how we kind of got in this position where so many people were looking for community service or volunteer opportunities, and it's very hard once you graduate college. You don't probably have the skills to be on a board, etc. So during that meantime, we want to create opportunities where people can really lead and create change within their community. So that would be the top of my wish list.
So if you were to think of a song that describes REM and Company, what would it be?
I'm not sure exactly which song it would be, but the kind of song that would definitely be is something that is calm, but also really exciting. There's tons of movement going on, whether it's in our initiative, etc. And yes, we try to be this organization that's very much the calm to the chaos for a lot of those businesses, and that's kind of what it appears to be on the outside. When you really get into it, we're so excited, we're so passionate, there's no way we could really be that calm. So I think a song that definitely is dynamic, yes, it'll kind of be quieter song, but definitely have some notes where you're kind of excited, and even maybe there are points where you want to get up and dance around, just because there's a lot of life that we're celebrating and there's a lot of positivity as well. And I think that's definitely what we kind of see ourselves in some sort of musical piece.
What a great flow of a response in terms of not of a single song, but this is what it would look like, this is what it would sound like, this is what it would feel like. I love that. What makes REM and Company gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy.
I think it's the people and the drive. Oftentimes, even for me, very much, even though I'm around so many amazing and confident people, it's like, if we want to get it done, I need to do it. And I think everyone has that same mentality of there's something inside of us saying, like, you are the person that needs to do this. Yes, we're in a community where we're so supported, but at the end of the day, if something needs to get done, we're being called upon to constantly be doing that.
I have to say, Cameron, it really speaks to not only you as a leader, your enthusiasm is contagious. I'm sure people have told you that. And you are the type of leader that doesn't, you're not going to say, do this. You're going to say, I'm going to do it with you, or I'll do it to show you, or we're going to do it side by side. And I love that because you roll up your sleeves, and your culture is everybody just rolls up their sleeves. And I really, it's quite admirable. And I just want you to know that.
Thank you so much, Laura.
What is something that outsiders, or maybe even a few insiders, don't know about REM and Company?
I think people don't really know the culture as much, just because it's something where people are so young and so excited that we are so professional when we're communicating with clients, etc. But when it's something where it's like one-to-one, it's very much like, hey Cam, here's what needs to get done, sending this your way. So just like short, quick, easy within that. And I think it's really funny because even when like I kind of introduce myself, it's very much like, hi, I'm Cameron, etc. And I don't think anyone at this company calls me Cameron. It's very much like, hey Cam, what's going on? And it was never me saying like, hi, this is an approved nickname. It's very much just like, we were this close, we were so accessible, etc. And I think that's something that even just like talks to the culture of people that, one, are really not afraid to be themselves. So I think that's something that like I get really proud of. Right now I'm back in New York and I live really close to family. And I have a grandma who is quite old, so I spend some days working from where she is just so that she has someone to be there. And it was really funny just because we were on the Zoom and she was literally sitting next to me on the couch, and it was like, at REM and Company, it's like, take your grandma to work day because we need to show up for the family and we also need to get stuff done. So here's what's happening. And everyone absolutely loved it, where it's like, here's my grandma, my parents, come say hi. The amount of like parents or other people that they've brought into this, everyone is so excited just to kind of be involved. And I think that kind of speaks to the culture as well. And definitely being able to like bring your full self, where you can be someone who is so professional, so really driven about the work that we're doing and so polished, but also be able to say like, I'm the first person to come to not only when like there's an issue, but also when there's something that you want celebrated. So it's really exciting, just I think, to be celebrating that culture constantly and have people that know that this is a place where they can come and be their full self and not only just be accepted, but be celebrated.
If you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about REM and Company, who might that be?
I think this is a really challenging one. And I feel like I might go back to even the approach I used with the musical one, just because I feel like for us, like as I said before, we're building something so new. And I think a lot of times with celebrities, etc., there are so many things that have been tarnished, etc. Like we put them on such high pedestals and they're bound to kind of make mistakes within that. I'm not sure if I would choose a celebrity, but I think something that I would probably want to align ourselves more would be something like the UN, just because it's an organization that like one is global and also has really similar values to us. So instead of maybe just having one person in an organization that I've definitely seen do a lot of work and constantly advocate, whether it's for developing countries or other things, kind of for the good of everyone. So that would be my answer.
I think it's a fabulous answer, and they have, I'm going to probably get this wrong, I think 17 initiatives that are everything from reducing poverty to clean water to the climate. And so those initiatives can be aligned with your social impact and how you address those. It would be amazing for them to say, this is really how we want to address change. And the way to do it is to have problem solvers connect with folks who are having the problem, right? And let's do this together. What is the best way for folks to reach you or reach REM and Company?
Through our website, www.remandcompany.com, where I'm also the first person that will be really excited just to hop on a call and talk one-on-one with anyone who's interested in that, just like my first name at remandcompany.com, which is an easy email for me to be reached at.
That's so great. And it's REM and Company, A-N-D.
And Cameron with a Y.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. We'll post that on our social media too. So I just want to thank you so much for spending time with me today and giving me a window into not just the programs that you offer, because it doesn't feel like a program, it feels like a movement, but really the depth of the hub that you're creating and the fingers that are spreading, and really the ability to not only impact and create future leaders, but to really address our socioeconomic needs and the impact so that these organizations can survive in terms of the work that they're producing, both for economic reasons, but also for social impact reasons. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you just so much for having me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and just the opportunity to tell more people about the work we're doing at REM.
I just love it. I think it's great. But I also want to just tell you that I loved your answers for the music and the influencer celebrity piece, because I do think it's hard to choose. It's like one of those quick and gutsies. It's kind of fun. Sometimes it's automatic for people, because I do feel like you have embarked on a newness that can only be matched by something yet to be solved in the answer of the UN. And I think that that is in and of itself noteworthy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, give us some stars, and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in sponsoring a small and gutsy episode to keep it going, please reach out to me or buy us a coffee at www.buymeacoffee.com/small-and-gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, meaning we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the volunteers, my co-producer, sound engineer, and composer, the amazing Pavel Franson, my social media maven, Delania Tirado, my infographic creator extraordinaire, Sonia Fizek, Nate Addy for the exceptional logo, and all the friends and family who have guided and inspired me. From small and gutsy to big with impact, I'm Laura Witkoff, and thanks for listening.